Hey guys, welcome back to my channel for an all new episode recap of today's Days of Our Lives, May 14, 2025. So we start off with Belle and EG. They're there canoodling in the living room area, and Kristen walks in with Rachel and saying, this is not an area for swingers. We're having a birthday party because they asked why are they dressed like their characters from Alice in Wonderland. So apparently it's Rachel's birthday and that's the theme. So Brady comes in and Belle was asking where her friends are. So you know Brady comes in and said that, here's one of the friends, right? So we already know that Rachel's quote unquote classmates ditched on her for whatever reason. So the parents have to make up for being the attendance for the party. So EJ and Belle said that they would want to come to support her at the birthday party. So EJ tells Rachel to go along and tell Cook to prepare two seats for them, right? So the adults get to talking and Belle is asking Brady like, hey, what's going on? That where's her friend? So, EJ has to be snarky and said that, with that winning personality, I am not surprised that nobody showed up. So she was like, she just shaking her head at him. And, Brady and Kristen explained that, they didn't want to RSVP because of, various reasons. So, anyways, they talk about the whole shooting and, that the killer's still out there. And, EG's apparent makeover or transformation that he's a good guy. And Brady finds it hard to believe. They said it's because of the cobalt. He is very skeptical, and Bell is trying to convey to him that look like he's trying to make a bid for the hospital, trying to do a good thing. And it'd be nice if he could support him. And Brady is not for it at all. And Chris is trying to trying to convince EJ that um, if Brady was for you, like you could tell me where my mother is. So EJ again is denied anything to do with her mother's disappearance. Belle leaves because again, this is not a conversation for her to hear as the DA. So she leaves and said that she will bring a gift for Rachel later on, right? So that gives Brady, Kristen, and EJ to talk. And EJ is just, playing hypothetically, like if he accepts the offer, like, how would this work? So Kristen is saying that, she has guardianship over her mom, so she's mentally incompetent to testify against him. So he would be in the clear. He just has to tell her where she is. So she also says to sweeten the deal, like you could also testify to the police that I did not have anything to do with your shooting. Like Rachel does not need her mom to be sent to jail, right? So he thought about it and he's like, no, I can't do that. Like I don't really remember. He's playing it off like I don't remember who shot me and it could be you. And I can't go ahead with that. So she's like, why would you want me to be sent away? So he's saying that he's trying to keep the family together. So she's saying, oh, just not me or my mother, right? So at this point, Rachel comes in and they begin the party, right? So it's an Alice in Wonderland party theme. It's whimsical. They're having tea, and EJ is there. So Rachel was asking where Belle was. So EJ said that she had some important things to do. So they begin the party, and they're exchanging gifts. And she said, imagine presents for Tate's baby, right? Because Brady did give her a present from Tate, but he was saying that he couldn't make it, right? So that was a little sad topic for those involved. So, Kristen is sorry that Brady had to hear that, and, EJ. So she was like, they were telling her that it's not going to happen. So she's saying that, I know you wanted to be a grandfather. I'm sorry that that's not going to happen. So how do you feel about that? So Kristen is trying to tell her not to say much, but EJ said it's okay. Like, I do feel bad that Johnny, is not going to adopt Tate's baby, and I feel bad, but, I wish that our family would be expanded. So she said, we still got family here, like my mom and everything. Like, she did not shoot you. So Brady was like, that's enough of that, right? So Anyways, he said that, the killer is probably out on the loose, and, that kind of terrified her. So she was like, she would say that, can I go to bed? And they were like, you have other presents to unwrap, right? So she's like, she unwrap them tomorrow. She just really needs to rest, right? So at this point, it's kind of like, awkward and everything. And it's like a lot of people have this theory that Rachel could possibly be EJ's shooter. The way how she's acting definitely is telling in this scene, right? So, anyways, Kristen and Brady are cleaning up, so he's like, staff could clean it up. So she's like, what's wrong with you? Why would you like really bring that up to Rachel, like to traumatize her? And he's like, there is a killer. It could be you. You could be my shooter, right? So she had enough of him, and she pushed the tree and hit him somehow. And Brady's like, are you okay? So she said, I just need some time to really, I'm gonna get some time to really, de-stress and go find something to clean it up. So Rachel screamed out, and she thought it was a gunshot, but Kristen was explaining to her that it was just the tray she knocked over, right? So EJ himself was also having some traumatic repeats of that shooting in his head as well. So Xander pays Kayla visits, and Kayla is asking how is Sarah doing? Is it anything wrong? So he's like, yeah, she's recovering. She just wants to go home. So she understands that. So she's like, what can I do for you? So he said, I heard about EJ putting in a bid for the hospital, so I'm tossing my hat in the ring. And she is on board with it, right? Because she sees that the hospital definitely needs saving, and she just has one question for him, like, what's in it for him? She's aware of the drug Versafix, and that they both want to vie for it. It could be a lucrative drug and all of that, so he understands all of that. But he also wants to save it for his wife and for Kayla and for the rest of the staff. And she's like, hopefully you do this for the greater good, right? That should be your agenda. So he promises that that is the main intention, right? And I'm saying she could have easily had this conversation with EJ, because Brady's gonna say Xander's the lesser of two evils. And I'm saying they're on the same range of evil doers and actions that they have done in the past, right? Kayla should have been unbiased. She doesn't like EJ, fine, but let's be logical, right? And be practical, right? Just hear him out and also tell him your concerns. And also, like, at the end of the day, you shouldn't use your feelings to like um choose one over the other, right? They're both on the same range of when it comes on to evil actions and all that. Come on. So Gabby and Alex are getting ready for their date, right? Remember that date that, she auctioned him off for? So it's coming on tonight, right? So she was on the phone earlier with Ariana, and it turns out that Ariana might be coming to Salem as we already expected. So she's awaiting her to come. I mean, we already knew this was going to happen, and she and Alex get ready. Alex told Stephanie, of course, Stephanie is kind of feeling weird about the whole thing. He's just trying to make it up to her, but they all understand that it's just for a good cause. So Alex comes over to her place, and he's saying, I reserved the seat at the bistro, right? For them. So remember, Gabby said to him that she wanted to be wined and dined, like she spent 15,000 as expected, right? And he's saying that that's too much. If that's too much, let's go to the pub. And she's like, no, like you're just making it worse. And he's saying, they got good clam chowder. So she's like, I dislike it. It tastes like clams out of a can. It's nasty to me, real salty. So I mean, I was definitely laughing at that scene. So anyways, anyway, she said that, what, just take me out, like, I just need to get out. I really did this to make JJ just, but he hasn't called me in so long. So at this point, wherever it is, as long as it's a fun night. So he did promise that it's going to be a fun occasion for them, because, again, she really did something for a good cause. So they're getting ready to get out. And can I tell you that I really like the chemistry between these two more than Alex and Stephanie? Like, I can tell, I can just feel the chemistry between these two. I wouldn't mind if they actually worked out, right? So Philip is at the bistro as well. He's talking to his friend Kevin. So it's been a while since they catch up. So Kevin is wondering if there is any, opening at Titan because he's just tired of the work environment at the lab with Dr. Russell. And he just wants a way out, and he knows that they go way back as friends. So he's wondering if there's any possibility for him. So Philip says, yeah, we can help each other, right? So I know that you're working with Dr. Russell, and I know you know about the drug Versifix, that it helps with sepsis. So my brother's dying from sepsis. I could definitely get my hands on this drug, with your help. So he said that I really wish that I could help you, but Dr. Russell is a tyrant, so he only gives a portion of a task when making the drug to each of the staff. So not everybody, nobody really knows how to replicate the drug at all. So it would be hard to do that. It would be risky. And, I guess there's not much of it around, right? So, anyways, Philip said the only option we have is to steal it. So, are you on board with that? So, Kevin, with hesitation, he said, okay, we're on board with that, right? So Gabby and Alex come in at the bistro and they notice Philip across the room. So they go over there to say hi to see what's going on because he's with this random guy. So Philip introduces them to his friend Kevin, and Gabby said, I'm here with him, not on a real date. It's for a good cause. So Kevin already picked it up that, it's a fundraiser. So she's like, yeah, correct. So anyways, Philip dashed out of there because he doesn't want Alex to really catch on to him, what he's up to. So they go back to their seat, and Alex is distracted because of what he just saw. So she's like, you think they're up to something? So he's like, yeah, knowing Philip, he may be up to something. So anyways, they start talking about the date and that she really is enjoying his company and he's easy to talk to. And but they're missing their respective significant others. And he's saying like, call to JJ. So she's like, no, I'm not gonna do that. Besides, it's nice talking to you. It'd be nice to do it again. So it's like, if you have another $15,000, I could make that happen. So she started laughing. So, anyways, you could tell that they're having a good time. The chemistry is definitely real. You can feel it through the TV screen. And I'm liking it, right? I really like them together. Belle comes over to Kayla and she's like, do you have a minute? So she's like, yes, anytime for you. So she talks to her about going to bat for EJ. She is telling Kayla how he's doing a wonderful thing, and she knows that she has reservations against EJ, but she's just asking her to give him a chance, have an open mind like she does for Xander. So she's like, I know you want to see the best in him, and I hope for your sake that he's actually a changed man and he's doing it for the right reasons. So she tells her about Versifix because him and Xander want their hands on this drug that may be lucrative for their pockets. So Belle was unaware of that, but she still wants to believe the best in EJ. I mean, she said that she is not naive, but we already know she's kind of naive. She's kind of really overly smitten about this guy. So she probably will not have her blinders off, right? So anyway, she is saying that, she's gonna trust him, and, even though she has her doubts as well, she's gonna trust that, he has changed for the better, right? So Philip comes over to the office thinking that Xander is out for the weekend. So he realized Xander is there, so he thought that, he could have used the office while he was away. So he said that no, he didn't go out. Sarah was in the hospital. So he's like, oh my gosh, are she okay? So he's like, yeah, she's okay. She just had an allergic reaction. She'll be fine. So he's like, thank God for that. So anyways, Philip talks about the whole thing with EJ taking. It's a good thing that, he put his hat in the ring because EJ was about to buy the whole hospital. So he's like, how do you know about that? So he's like, my mom is on board, so I'm aware of that. So he's like, anyways, you know, I'm here, trying to see, my right pitch for this thing. So Philip said, you can go back to Sarah while I be here and take care of some of the things. So he's like, no, I'm good. I mean, we'll all be good to take over the hospital. And he's like, so Titan is in the lead, so he's like, yeah, unless you screwed it up already, right? Because he didn't know of Lander's plans to take over the hospital and everything, so he already went to talk to his friends. So who knows if that would blow up in his face. So at some point, Kevin does call Philip and say, this weekend is the right time to strike because Dr. Russell is out at a conference and he did give the staff off. So now is the time for them to really strategize and go steal a drug. So he's like, he's on board. So Alex comes over to Xander to talk about this whole thing with him pitching his proposal to the board and everything is looking up right. So Alex is definitely on board with it all, and hopefully everything is going right, right? So Kayla was on the phone with Steve, and she's hoping that they get in there and get out fast because now is the time to really get the drug, and hopefully everything goes well, right? So everybody has their eyes on this Versaflex drug, this hospital. So let's see who will definitely get it first, right? I still feel like, there's more to be discussed about this Miss Rachel shooting her own uncle, but let's see how it rolls out, right? Don't forget to like, follow, and subscribe to my channel. Comment below your thoughts on today's episode. I will see you guys tomorrow.